She didn't slash my tires. She didn't yell. She didn't even touch my car. She did something worse. Every single morning, she parked her BMW sideways, blocking my garage. Not once, not twice, every single day. She thought I had no options. She was wrong. At first, it didn't feel like a big deal. I am a pretty patient person, and I've always believed that most problems in a neighborhood can be solved with a little communication and common sense. Every morning, I'd leave my house around the same time, open my garage, and head out for work. That routine was smooth and predictable until one day. I opened the garage door and saw a BMW parked sideways right across the entrance. Not in front of it by accident. Not close enough to be annoying. Sideways, blocking the entire exit as if it had been placed there on purpose. I figured it was a one-time mistake. Maybe someone had rushed, misjudged the space, or didn't realize they were blocking a garage. So I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Finally, the owner came out calm, unbothered, and not even apologetic. She unlocked the car, glanced at me, and drove off like nothing had happened. I brushed it off and went on with my day, telling myself it wasn't worth getting upset over something so minor. Neighborhoods are full of little inconveniences, and this felt like one of them. The next morning, it happened again. Same car, same angle, same complete blockage of my garage. This time, I left a polite note on the windshield, explaining that the garage was in daily use and asking her not to park there again. I made sure the tone was respectful because I didn't want to start a conflict. When I came back home later, the note was gone, but the behavior didn't change. Over the following days, the pattern became impossible to ignore. She wasn't parking there randomly. She was timing it, always during the hours when I needed to leave. Always positioned in a way that made it impossible for me to squeeze past. I knocked on her door once and calmly explained the issue. She smiled, nodded, and said she understood. The very next morning, her BMW was parked even closer, as if my request had challenged her. What started as a mild inconvenience quickly turned into a daily disruption. I was late to work. I had to rearrange appointments. I found myself standing in my driveway every morning, staring at my own blocked garage, wondering how something so small had suddenly begun to control my entire schedule. That's when I realized this wasn't about parking anymore. It was about someone deciding they had the right to inconvenience me whenever they felt like it. By the time I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding, I did what any reasonable homeowner would do. I contacted the HOA. I documented everything: photos of the BMW parked sideways, timestamps, dates, even short videos showing that my garage was completely blocked. I assumed this would be an easy fix. After all, HOAs are supposed to exist for situations exactly like this. Rules, enforcement, consequences. That's what we all pay for, right? At first, the responses sounded promising. I received polite emails thanking me for bringing the issue to their attention and assuring me it would be looked into. They asked for evidence, which I already had ready. I sent everything over, expecting a warning notice to be issued or at least a conversation with her that would stop the behavior. Days passed, then a week. Nothing changed. Meanwhile, the BMW kept appearing every morning like clockwork, blocking my garage with surgical precision. I followed up with the HOA again, this time asking for an update. The reply was vague and frustrating. They claimed parking enforcement was limited, and that they preferred to encourage neighborly resolution. In other words, they weren't going to do anything unless the situation somehow resolved itself. That was the moment I realized I was on my own. And she knew it too. Almost immediately, her attitude shifted. The polite nods disappeared. Instead, she started smirking whenever she saw me waiting in my driveway. Sometimes she'd sit in her car for a few extra seconds before moving it, scrolling on her phone like she was savoring the moment. Once, she even waved. Not a friendly wave, more like a reminder that she had all the power and no consequences. It became clear that the lack of enforcement had emboldened her. She wasn't just blocking my garage anymore. She was testing boundaries, parking closer, angling the car tighter, making sure there was absolutely no way for me to get out without confronting her. The HOA's silence wasn't neutral, it was permission. Each ignored complaint sent the same message. This behavior was acceptable, and she took full advantage of that. I could feel the shift in control. How a simple parking issue had turned into a daily power struggle. She had figured out the system, and she was exploiting it, while I kept waiting for the HOA to step in. She was growing more confident by the day, enjoying the fact that she could disrupt my life without facing a single consequence. After weeks of dealing with it, I stopped reacting emotionally and started paying attention. Once you remove frustration from the equation, patterns become obvious. She wasn't just parking badly, she was performing. Every move was deliberate. The timing, the angle, even the way she lingered before moving her car all pointed to something deeper than convenience or carelessness. This wasn't about needing a place to park. This was about control. I noticed she never blocked anyone else's driveway. Not once. There were other garages on the street, some even closer to her house. Yet mine was the only one she targeted. That detail changed everything. It told me I wasn't dealing with a parking problem, I was dealing with a person who had decided I was the one she could dominate without resistance. The moment I involved the HOA and nothing happened. She understood that there were no consequences, and that realization flipped a switch. Her behavior started to feel calculated, almost strategic. On days when I had an early meeting, she showed up earlier. On days when I tried leaving late, she somehow stayed longer. It was as if my schedule had become part of her routine. She'd look over, make eye contact, then look away like nothing was happening. No shouting, no insults, just quiet interference. And that made it worse. People like that don't want confrontation. They want compliance. They thrive on the slow grind of inconvenience, on watching someone rearrange their life to accommodate behavior that should never have existed in the first place. Blocking my garage was her way of asserting dominance in the smallest, pettiest way possible, knowing it was just subtle enough to avoid immediate punishment. Once I saw it clearly, the anger faded and something else replaced it: clarity. I understood that asking her to stop was pointless. Appealing to the HOA was pointless. She didn't want resolution. She wanted leverage. Every minute I stood there waiting was proof, in her mind, that she was winning. And that's when the situation stopped feeling personal and started feeling procedural. If this was a power move, then the only way to end it wasn't with arguments or complaints, but by removing the power entirely. Control only works when there's something to control. She had built a little game around my garage access, assuming it would always be vulnerable. The moment I recognized that, I stopped playing by her rules and started thinking about how to change the board completely. Once I stopped reacting and started thinking logically, everything became quiet. No more notes, no more complaints, no more visible frustration. From the outside, it probably looked like I had given up. In reality, I was doing the opposite. I was planning. The key wasn't retaliation, it was permanence. If the problem was access to my garage, then the solution had to remove that access entirely, in a way that couldn't be argued, challenged, or reversed. The first thing I did was check the rules. Property lines, easements, HOA bylaws, city codes, everything. I wanted zero gray area. I confirmed exactly where my property began and how close any structure could legally be placed near the driveway. I contacted the city, not the HOA, and asked about installing fixed safety posts. The answer was simple. As long as they were on my property and met spacing and visibility requirements, they were completely legal. That's when I ordered the steel posts. Not decorative ones. Not flimsy barriers. Real, industrial-grade steel posts designed to stop vehicles. They were measured, anchored, and placed with intention far enough apart for my car to pass through easily, but close enough that no vehicle could angle itself sideways across my garage again. Every measurement was double-checked. Every permit was approved. This wasn't emotional. It was precise. Installation day came and went without drama. No confrontation. No announcement. By the time she noticed, the posts were already set in concrete, solid and immovable. From the street, they didn't look aggressive. They just looked final. My garage was now physically protected in a way it had never been before. What mattered most was that the solution didn't target her, it targeted the behavior. I hadn't blocked her access. I hadn't touched her property. I hadn't violated a single rule. All I had done was secure my own driveway. And because it was fully permitted and fully compliant, there was nothing she or the HOA could say about it. For the first time in weeks, I slept well. I left my house on time. My routine returned. The daily stress evaporated almost overnight. Whatever game she thought she was playing had just lost its board. The steel posts didn't argue. They didn't negotiate. They simply existed. And in doing so, they quietly removed the one thing she thought she controlled. The morning it happened felt strangely normal. No confrontation. No warning. I opened my garage like I had every day since the posts went in, expecting nothing more than another quiet, Uneventful exit. That's when I heard the engine rev. Not the slow, careful movement I'd seen before, but something sharper. Defensive. Almost annoyed. She approached the driveway at the same angle she always had. Muscle memory guiding her instead of logic. For a split second, it looked like she was going to stop. Then she didn't. The BMW kept rolling forward, and the sound that followed wasn't dramatic, it was heavy. A dull, metallic impact that echoed through the street and instantly drew attention. The front end of her car met solid steel. There was no give, no scrape and slide. Just an abrupt stop that sent the hood buckling upward and the bumper collapsing inward. The car shut down immediately. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of something leaking underneath. She sat there frozen, hands still on the wheel, staring straight ahead as if the post had appeared out of nowhere. Neighbors came out. Phones came up. Someone asked if she was okay. She didn't answer. When she finally stepped out, the damage was undeniable. The front axle was compromised. The headlights were shattered. The frame was bent in a way that no cosmetic repair could hide. This wasn't a scratch. This was a total loss. The police arrived not long after. They took statements, measured distances, and checked permits. I handed over the paperwork calmly. Everything was in order. The posts were legal, clearly marked, fully visible. There was no argument to be made. The officer's conclusion was simple. She had driven into a fixed object on private property. Insurance didn't save her, because the structure was permitted and stationary. Liability landed entirely on her. No shared fault. No loopholes. Just consequences. The BMW was towed away that afternoon. Its front end crumpled. Its daily routine ended permanently. She never parked there again. In fact, she barely looked in my direction after that. The garage stayed clear. The street stayed quiet. And the problem that once controlled my mornings was gone, not because of yelling or revenge, but because one careless decision met an immovable solution. If you're enjoying stories where entitlement meets real consequences, make sure you hit subscribe right now.